Today's drawing is of a pipe. My dad used to smoke a pipe back in the 70s. I loved the smell of the cherry tobacco. So when I do my drawings, I just go to, I kind of approach it the same way I approach work. I always go for the lowest hanging fruit first. Things that are easy, because that, for me, greases the wheels. It gets my motor going. It gives me a nice little sense of accomplishment at the beginning of a project, and once I have that kind of under my belt, then I'm ready to tackle some of the harder things. So in this case, I know that a pipe is dark on the inside, so that's where I'm going to go with that. And then I often just go straight for the edges, because that's, in my mind, a foundation. Almost everything that I'm going to do is going to have dark around the edge. So I just get to that. That's kind of a also low-hanging fruit. That's a gimme. So, and it's also kind of a way for me to analyze what I'm drawing, and I'm not always looking directly at, you know, doing, it's because it's so rudimentary, it's kind of, you can have another thought at the same time that you're doing this very simple edge detail. So then I can kind of go, you know, I think what I'll do is it's gonna go like that, and then it's gonna go like that, and kind of plan my strategy as I'm doing this really basic stuff. So I like to start with some basic starting points. Edges, easy. I know, you know, things I know that are going to be like this, the hole in there. I know it's going to be dark, so just go for it. Just get that out of the way. And then when I'm making my shadows, I'm just kind of taking a look at where it's going sharply from one degree to another. Unfortunately, it doesn't always come across on the camera. These pictures are much more, they're darker in real life. And maybe as I go, I'll get better equipment. But right now, you're really only getting 80% of what's really happening. So there's a nice foundation on one side, and do the other side. I do try to keep in mind which way the light's going to come from, so I don't go too crazy on the darks if I know I'm just going to be adding, more like subtracting some light from it. So in this case, my light's going to come from here, and it's going to hit pretty much this edge right here, and then the front of this curve. So, and like I had said previously, those are things that I kind of figure out logically. It's just surfaces. You don't necessarily need, as long as you're not doing life drawing, you don't necessarily need a subject to draw from. I'm going to leave this top alone because that's where the light is going to hit from the top. I'm going to address that later as its own thing. And get this foundation done. Got to be careful when you do this smudging. Sometimes my hands are a little bit wet. Maybe I just put lotion on my hands and I'll totally ruin what I'm doing. And you can't even erase it because it's oil. Yeah, that's always a bummer. I also work small, so a lot of my gradients, my fingers are too fat, so I actually use my pencil. I use the pressure of my pencil to fill in the gaps where I couldn't get in there with my finger. You know, and I know about the smudging tools, those pieces of paper that are all rolled up. They have never worked for me. Maybe I just didn't give it enough of a chance, but I've never liked those. So I developed my own method. Alright, so here, if the light's coming from the left-hand side, this mouthpiece is going to block the light just a little bit. And we're going to let that be a gradient. And then a little bit of a dark here. I'm going to leave this for the bright. Leave that edge there. I might play with that a little bit more later. Got the foundation down, and then because this is kind of a oval, I'm gonna make it a little bit of a harder edge, and it's also going to be shiny because, you know, if you've seen a pipe, they have a nice finish to them. Unless it's a corncob pipe, in which case they ain't shiny at all. Alright, so now, generally speaking, this is a sphere, and so I'm going to address the light that way. And if the light is coming from this way, I'm going to go ahead and split this in half and start filling in these shadows halfway there. And then from here, and I'll neaten that up in a bit, but from here, then I'm going to start creating a real gradient all the way from here to here. But I'm not going to go all the way to the edge, and the reason for that is that you almost always have reflective light on an object. And I make it work even though I have a dark edge. I still include reflective light, and that's what gives it a little bit more of a realistic look. And then I decide where my dark point's going to be. And usually it's not at the edge, it's going to be at the kind of the halfway point between the entire shadow and within the shadow, if that makes any sense. I'm in there. I'm not accustomed to verbalizing what it is that I'm thinking as I go, but I'm kind of enjoying it. So, and then sometimes it just gets so dark that it does go into oblivion, because on the bottom of the pipe there will not be reflective light, because the light is coming from above and down. Unless I had it on, for example, if I was doing a picture of, let's say I was doing this, instead of a silo, I was doing a silhouette or vignette. I was doing something with a background and it was on glass or a piece of marble that was shiny and reflective. I would include a reflective light around the edge, but because I've decided that in my world this is going to be on just straight up, it's just going to get darker and darker, then I'm going to let this fall to underneath and let that reflective light fade off. Do have some of those rubber erasers. I think these are fine. These are the German, I think it's a Kohinoor, the blue one. You know, the ubiquitous blue eraser. So basically when I do the details and get in there, I'm just looking for spots where it's lighter or dark, well, lighter, and fill them in. Just, you know, there's a hole there, there's a hole there. Dear Liza, there's a hole in my shadow, dear Liza, a hole. And just fill it in. And eventually, if I were to do this for a few more hours, it would be perfect. Life is too short for perfection. Am I right? Am I right? So it looks like the pipe is going in two different directions, doesn't it? Why don't we try adding a little bit more here? Yeah. Wonder why that is. In the last video I mentioned sometimes the pictures just don't work. Sometimes they don't work, and you just gotta keep on going, and you know. See? And then that's when you go get your reference and be like, part of this isn't accurate. Let's do the edges of this, just cause it'd make it cool looking. And because it's up against this darker middle part, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna color in any of that. Might as well make it consistent. And then give that a little depth. This top part is going to be a little bit more on the flat side, so we're going to give that a harder edge, but make sure the gradient is still in there. And maybe I'll add a little hard. Mais cet objet, c'est vraiment une pipe. Just for kicks, I'm gonna darken this, differentiate it from the rest of the pipe, probably add back the highlight, get these all nice and dark. Ready? Fini. C'est une pipe.